Are we seeing the downfall of Airbnb? Our cabin that has been booked in the Smoky Mountains from about 85 to 95% occupancy year-round is just not occupied at all. Our prices right now for a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom cabin overlooking the Smoky Mountains is less than a hotel, and I have to beg people to come to my cabin right now.
Airbnb's downfall is quite simple, actually. It's because y'all deviated from y'all original business model, which was to be cheaper and more convenient than hotels. At first, you guys were, but now you just aren't. Number one, you cost more than a hotel. Now keep this in mind. You can get into a really fancy hotel for less than $200 a day. If you go on Airbnb right now, the cheapest house is $200 a day. Then you have to factor in cleaning fees, which is another $250, $300. With hotels, you just don't have that. With Airbnbs, you got to put all the towels in the washer. You got to put the trash out to the curb. Like with the hotels, you get in, you get out. You check in, you check out. That's it. Then you got to factor in all the hidden fees with the Airbnb. Your host might not be available 24/7. With hotels, you always have a front desk attendant, so you can always go there if you have a problem. And just think about it. When you're on vacation, you typically go on vacation, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. When you buy Airbnb, your first day, you have to go out and go grocery shopping. But mind you, you're on vacation. You don't want to go grocery shopping. You really don't even want to go cook for yourself. With hotels, they offer free breakfast. So all you have to do is go downstairs, eat breakfast, and you are good for the day. So for your typical 3-day weekend, you want to go to a hotel. For your really, really expensive hotels, we're talking about $200 a day. We're at $400 for our typical 3-day weekend, 2-night stay. If you take that same scenario and go to Airbnb, you're looking at $650, $700.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine being on vacation and still having to do your chores, cause it defeats the whole purpose of skipping work and trying to get some sort of break. And now hotel operators along with aspiring homeowners will love this next announcement.
It's 10,000 doors closing when you talk about Airbnb. Wow. They have about 40,000 listings.
Okay, guys, this Airbnb thing is not going away. These restrictions are going to continue. We're seeing it in New York. Other cities are very, very soon to follow. More and more of these listings are going to hit the market, and a lot of them are going to be upside down because they bought at the height of the market, or they bought on speculative mortgages. I keep encouraging you to get ready. This is going to continue to happen.
We need to bring back foreclosure listings, because as this Airbnb bubble crashes and people are losing multiple homes because they can't afford them and nobody wants their shitty Airbnbs with all their prices and lists anymore, it's going to be a good way to get the houses back into the market. See, it used to be, it was really unethical to go onto those foreclosure lists to buy a house through foreclosure prices, because it typically meant that you were stealing away the house of somebody who just couldn't pay their taxes and they were going to lose their family home over a couple $1,000s, and you were snatching it up for basement prices. It was super unethical. But those aren't the houses that are on the list anymore. Now, most of those foreclosure listings are investment properties, Airbnbs, second, third, fourth, fifth rental homes that they've jacked up for prices and rent control. And I don't feel bad for him. I do want to see more of it. We need to get the middle class their housing market back. We're not going to get it back from the hedge funders anytime soon, so let's start with them. Mark my words, foreclosure lists are going to come back with a vengeance.
Just with the foreclosure, you have to be extra careful the property does not become a money pit, because everything from contractors to DIY materials are ridiculously expensive right now. And next we got one of the biggest vacation destinations in the world, Miami, struggling under the weight of typically foreign speculation.
Everyone thought they could get rich off a skyline, buy a condo, list it on Airbnb, and boom, instant Miami mogul. But 10 years later, that dream's cracking faster than a hurricane season roof. In the mid-2000s, investors smelled gold in Miami's coastline, weather, and lack of state income tax. What if you could buy a condo, slap it on Airbnb, and get 30 to 40% returns? It wasn't just possible. It became the entire business model for new developments. Buildings started going up with one purpose: Airbnb 365. Rooftop pools, 24-hour check-in desks, and owners who never planned to live there. Some units sold for nearly $1 million based purely on rental potential. Whole towers were built around the promise of passive income. But by 2025, the cracks are showing. City regulators pushed back hard. Zoning laws, licensing requirements, and short-term rental bans spread across Miami and Miami Beach. Neighborhoods that were once all investment properties are now off limits to nightly rentals. And those that still allow them? Heavily taxed and closely monitored. Locals are fed up too. Long-term renters are being priced out by revolving door guests. HOAs are enforcing stricter limits, and the city is cracking down with fines and code enforcement. The backlash is real. At the same time, the market itself is wobbling. Miami has officially been labeled one of the biggest real estate bubble risks in the world. Home prices are stagnating, inventory is stacking up, and short-term rentals are struggling to cover rising insurance, HOA, and maintenance costs. The Airbnb dream that turned Miami into a digital gold rush is starting to collapse under its own hype.
The downfall of Airbnb is 100% the greed of the hosts, and I stand behind that. It was a great concept in the beginning. It still is technically a great concept. It should be working, but hosts got so greedy. The whole reason you would book it in the beginning is because it was cheaper than a hotel, and it was really good if you're going anywhere with a big group to find a house or something. But then they started with the cleaning fees, all of these ridiculous fees, all of these, like a list of things that you have to do before you even leave. And then people started purchasing extra properties with the whole intention of just putting it on Airbnb. And if you are unlucky enough to live in a market where a lot of people do that, it artificially raises up the rent for everybody else. If I'm staying in a hotel, I don't have to worry about anything. I don't have to clean anything. I don't have to worry about all those crazy fees. And now it's cheaper than most Airbnbs because they jack the prices up so much. It was a great run, but I don't miss it at all.
Yeah, if you're paying for an Airbnb, you should not be expected to be your own maid. Although you can show kindness from your heart, it should not be expected. And now this next guy has a great breakdown of the domino effect of the Airbnb collapse on the housing market.
Airbnb is going to collapse the housing market. We're seeing the same crazy prices that we were in the early 2000s. Back in 2008, the reason that the housing market went into crisis was because people couldn't pay the notes on their adjustable mortgages. So lots of people defaulted, homes went into foreclosure, a lot of supply came on the market, housing prices went down. We're seeing the exact same thing right now with Airbnb and short-term rentals. Except this time, the single point of failure, instead of being adjustable rate mortgages, it is oversupply of short-term rentals. So the reason it affects the housing market is people purchased these Airbnbs using old data. They used old occupancy numbers, old revenue numbers to decide whether or not the purchase of these homes were worth it. Instead of being smart and using long-term tenants as their income data, they used short-term tenants, which means they overpaid. And in conjunction with overpaying, they're now stuck in a 6, 7, even higher percent interest rate. Once people realize that they're not getting the income that they expected and they're locked into a 7% mortgage on an overinflated property value, they are effed. And so what are they going to do? They can't rent it to a long-term tenant. They're not going to make the income that they were expecting. The houses are going to be put up for sale. They're going to be taken for losses. They're going to be foreclosed on.
I've seen way too many people come out and claim that Airbnb is going to collapse, and then that's a signal that the whole housing market is going to collapse, and then we're going to have all this affordable housing available. Vox already did a story pointing out, no, this is not how anything works. If we want housing affordability, we're going to have to start building homes again. This is how it's been since the 2008 mortgage crisis. We've never even got back up to that level again. We need to fix why we're not building enough homes. A lot of it was the pandemic, supply chain issues, high material costs, everything else, local pushback, NIMBYism, labor shortages, all of it contributes to the fact that we're not building enough housing. On top of that, high interest rates and home values are causing people not wanting to sell right now because there's no good incentive to. Homebuyers are already struggling to buy homes right now with the current interest rates and the current cost of homes. And home sellers aren't seeing a big incentive to sell right now. And if you're selling, you're probably going to want to buy a different house, and then you're stuck with high interest rates as well. More home builders right now are also switching a lot of their properties they're developing to be for rent rather than for sale. Because right now, for most people, renting is cheaper than buying by an absolute significant amount. So no, Airbnb's collapse will not save us. We need to build lots of homes.
Sure, you can say that it won't fix the housing market, but less investors buying up Airbnbs means more homes available for families that actually need them. Not a company that wants to speculate rather than needs them to live in. And now we got the pollen spreading more and more from state to state.
So for those that don't know, Airbnb right now is taking an absolute beating. There's certain states like San Antonio, Nashville, Denver, New Orleans, Seattle, and Orlando that have seen the biggest drops, but if you look at Tennessee, they're almost at a drop of 50%. Now I did some digging, and it just so happens that Airbnb has roughly 350,000 more listings than the active listings available for sale right now in the US. This is important because if this continues, and I don't know, let's just say landlords in these areas are not making the money that they'd hoped, and we see 15 to 20% of these Airbnb hosts start selling their listings, you're talking about a potential of 300,000 to 400,000 new listings entering the market at a time when the industry desperately needs it.
Airbnb hosts are freaking out due to this viral tweet about the Airbnb collapse. It says revenues are 1/2 what they were at this time last year in cities like Phoenix and Austin, Texas. The tweet cites a data source that says that in these cities here, there is almost a 50% drop in year over year in revenue per available listing. That is the average amount that a listing in a particular city makes each month on Airbnb. So if it used to be $6,000 a month, now it's $3,000. However, we've got a little bit of a Twitter battle on our hand because Jamie over here, who works at AirDNA, which is actually a more respected short-term rental Airbnb data provider, has a different story to tell. Their platform finds that instead of a 40.3% decrease, it's actually only 3.6%, much lower. So what are my takeaways? Well, first of all, AirDNA versus all the rooms. What do you guys think? Who's better?
Maybe if there wasn't a $250 cleaning fee, the stats would look a bit different. And here's another perspective on those absurd fees.
First of all, wishing all those investors a very happy Airbnb collapse. Sorrows, prayers. Mwah. But honestly, at this point, even if they stop charging like exuberant cleaning fees and like brought your luggage into the house fee, I'm still not partaking in the Airbnb and I'll tell you why. Until there are more regulations put on like how many of these things people can own, it's going to remain a problem. Look, it was a good idea in the beginning, like you're out of town, like rent out your place so somebody else can stay in it. Like, no, love that. But buying up these houses and like these apartments specifically to only use for Airbnb is contributing so much to the housing problem. I remember reading at one point in New York, there were more available Airbnbs than there were available apartments for rent.
Airbnb now has so many problems that I don't know if they will ever be able to recover. We are seeing the crash of Airbnb. Now, some of these problems include the insane fees that add up to more than the cost per night and the negative effect that it is having on the current housing crisis. There's even horror stories of tenants moving in and then staying and squatting and refusing to pay rent, refusing to leave the property, and Airbnb and the government is doing nothing. So Airbnb is truly a mess. It is not affordable anymore. And a lot of these places aren't even that nice. You used to go to Airbnb, so it'd be like a cute little house. You would see a lot of character. It'd be fun. Now I walk in and they're just like sad, depressing apartments with IKEA furniture. It's like I would much rather be in a cute little hotel. I would much rather be in a La Quinta versus this. And the fact that Airbnb is adding their own fees on top of the fees that they are already taking from your nightly stay is just insane, which is probably why the hosts are now hiking up all their cleaning fees, because that gives them a little extra cushion to make up the money that they're losing from Airbnb taking a huge cut.
That problem is often because the owner of the Airbnb just sees it as numbers on a screen versus an actual customer service business. So then they neglect the property to chase a certain income per month. And next we got a bit of an I told you so.
My buddy called me up to let me know his Airbnbs are making no money at all, and he's losing money, and he's desperately trying to sell them down in Florida and wants to know what he should do. This is the same guy that called me up and said, "Why are you telling people to get out of Florida and sell in Florida?" And this was 2 years ago. I said, "I warned you. I told you what was coming. And now you want to know what you can do? You're too late."
Have you heard all the chatter about the potential Airbnb collapse? Let's talk about it. There have been tons of articles done on this so far, but this article specifically is from Housing Wire. These numbers are the most shocking, and these are the numbers that a lot of people are reporting in those articles, like Seaverville, Tennessee, dropping almost 50%, Phoenix, Arizona, also dropping almost 50%, and Austin, Texas, dropping 46%. Then it goes into Myrtle Beach and San Antonio with these huge declines. And the economy was booming, everybody was buying up all these properties and turning them into short-term rentals. But if you didn't buy your short-term rental and plan for it to be financially a long-term rental in declined economies, then this is going to hurt. But here's the funny thing for me. There is a huge difference between this all the rooms data and the AirDNA data. AirDNA is showing declines that are significantly smaller, which from a data perspective makes me wonder why these two pieces of data are so incredibly different. Seaverville is looking at 9.4% decline. Phoenix, Arizona is at 3.9. It's kind of small and hard to read, but feel free to pause and screenshot. Here's the thing though, even if it is somewhere between these two, this could potentially mean a lot of listings coming to the market. It would really positively impact the supply and ultimately make it more affordable for you to buy a home.
Yeah, home buyers can take any help that they can get at the moment. More so in the help of something that lowers prices and not just lowering the interest rates. And next we got a presentation of Airbnb's downfall and perhaps the biggest metropolis in the world, New York City.
So Airbnb is officially over. Okay, the collapse of Airbnb is happening right now. So if you have an investment property and you're using it for Airbnb, get ready for some new laws and regulations, okay? It's coming from state to state, and New York is getting hit the worst. My prayers go out to the people in New York. If you guys can get out of New York, get out of New York as soon as possible. It's only going to get worse from here on out.
New York is going to begin enforcing a new law that regulates Airbnb rentals in New York. It happens today, and some say it could amount to an effective ban on short-term rent.
Starting today, short-term rental hosts in New York, that's Airbnb or Booking.com, they're going to have to register with the city, and they have to comply with a new law that states you cannot rent out your entire apartment for less than 30 days, and hosts can only offer short-term rentals if they remain with their guests in the apartment. Hosts face fines of up to $5,000 per violation. There are about 40,000 Airbnbs in New York, but rampant abuse, that's where hosts rented dozens of units as kind of shadow hotel rooms. That led to a lot of neighbor and building complaints. City council members also say Airbnbs have raised rents in New York since they've taken all that inventory off the normal rental market. Airbnb calls the rules, quote, a blow to New York's tourism economy and the thousands of New Yorkers and small businesses in the outer boroughs who rely on home sharing and tourism dollars to make ends meet in a very expensive city. Now, hosts say registration is almost impossible. Many have waited months for approval. Thousands of Airbnb listings have already started disappearing from the website.
The Airbnb collapse is real, guys. There are cities losing over 40% revenue. Cities like Austin, Texas, Phoenix, Arizona, they are getting crushed. But before you freak out, here's why I'm not bothered or worried at all. People have been saying this since 2019. And here's the thing. If you know your numbers, you know the data, and you have the blueprint, the strategy to get past the bust, you're going to be fine. This is why my students and myself are not worried whatsoever during this process.
Are you serious? I mean, sure, we like the confidence and hopefully he and others have the work ethic to back it up, but we've got to be real here. Because it may not be the right time to start an Airbnb business while there are plenty of other ways to make some money. And speaking of Airbnb business, this is what can happen when it goes wrong.
Destin, Florida, spring break, not my favorite guests. They pulled the gate off the fence. I don't even know how they did that. Drank large quantities of beer, which is not cool. I mean, I get it. It's spring break, but let's take it easy here, guys. It's not, I mean, I remember my first beer. Don't drink it in my house, please. Screwed up the coffee table. The thing that I'm really most upset about, not even the gate falling off the fence, is that they beat the crap out of the staircase on the way up. There's a big gouge right there, and it goes all the way up, and it's filthy. And just to give you some context, this staircase was painted and fixed up 2 weeks ago. So it was a brand new condition 2 weeks ago. So not our favorite guest. And to top it all off, somebody got in a fight with the trash can. So, hey, we do our part. We offer a fantastic house, ready to rock, clean pool, clean everything, ready to go for your vacation. Please be better vacationers than these people.
All right, these articles are coming out about Airbnb crashing, revenues have slashed by 50%, and there's fear of a housing market crash. Here's my advice to you. I don't know what's going to happen,
But what I would suggest that you do if you're not in real estate or if you are in real estate is to learn how to buy properties using creative financing. There's going to be huge opportunities coming up if there is in fact a market crash, and you can buy properties at huge discounts, buying subject to their existing loans. You can help a lot of people. You can save a lot of these owners of these properties who are not going to be able to get out of these properties simply by taking over their loans, doing lease options, doing owner financing, doing seller financing.
Well, it is hard to find much sympathy for the owners of Airbnb rentals to want to save them, at least the businesses operating under a huge conglomerate. And next we got a horrifying case of an Airbnb guest with surprise charges from a host, which can happen to anyone.
Oh, it's gotten worse, you guys. It's gotten worse. So settle in for some tea. I need one of those intros like the Jolly Ginger has. After our hosts tried to blatantly scam us out of $2,300 in supposed damages and missing items, I responded to the Airbnb people the way that you're supposed to. Y'all, I put together a 10-page document outlining, disputing, and showing evidence for every single way those hosts were lying. Things like claiming that pillows were missing that were never even there. And I was able to prove that some of the pictures that they took pictures of weren't even at the same property. They claimed that they need a brand new sofa and chair, that it needed to be replaced. And I was able to show that literally as soon as we moved in out of my own pocket, I purchased waterproof furniture covers to keep those. And those furniture covers were on the sofa and chair at all times. We left it pristine. I provided them with text messages showing that after the hosts had already been through our house on multiple occasions to do things like repairs and stuff, they begged us to stay. When our Airbnb term was up, they were begging us to turn it into a long-term rental. They even lowered the price, but we still moved because we wanted something cheaper than they were offering. But I know for a fact that they were having a hard time getting other renters in there, and they were begging us to stay. Despite all of that and more, I got an email from Airbnb yesterday saying that they finished investigating the claim and that we owe $1,800. And I said, we will absolutely not be paying that. How do we owe $1,800? And do you know what they wrote me back? They try to be fair and look at all the evidence. And if I have any evidence, I should send it over. You mean like the 10-page document I already sent you weeks ago? There's literally no way they looked at that document at all.
In 2022 and early 2023, the demand for houses was astronomical and the supply was very low, which means prices were high. But with all these Airbnb homes hitting the market soon, the supply is going to go up and the demand is going to go down, which means prices are going to go down. So if you were someone who really wanted to buy a house in 2022 and, the prices were too high and you were struggling to afford it, I'd recommend you pay close attention to the housing market this year. But it's important to note that this does not mean an astronomical reduction in the price. Where I live in Atlanta, the average home price is around $440,000. As we move to the later months of 2023, we're definitely going to see this graph and this number go down, but definitely not by something like 200, 300,000. But even if the price goes down by, 20,000, 40,000, that's still a great opportunity for a lot of people. So in 2019, I graduated high school. My friends and I were looking for a place to stay. We wanted to go on a little bit of a getaway for a senior trip. So we found this place about 50 miles from Atlanta. Not this one exactly, by the way. This is just an example I found on the internet. But anyway, we find this place. It's around $200 for 2 nights. And that's including the cleaning fee, tax, service, every single fee. It was $200 in total. And I went with 3 other people, so a total of 4. So for the entire stay, I paid $50. If you wanted that same place today, it would be triple the cost. The cleaning fee is going to be like $200 despite you cleaning the whole apartment. Not apartment, house in this case, but you know what I mean. You have to worry about hidden cameras being in your bedroom. I know it's uncommon, but it still happens. And on top of that, you got to worry about security. Because remember, where I stayed, this was like a random place in the woods. There were some people walking around, but there's no, police or security force walking around. So why would you ever stay at an Airbnb over a hotel?
Yeah, having so many sets of eyes watching over where you stay is such a benefit. Because hotels have plenty of cameras along with security personnel, front desk, and cleaning staff on the property at all times. I really hope you enjoy these ones today, and if you want to talk some money and hopefully make some, there's a school community for that and the link is in the video description.